Hello folks, just going to do a quick, well I say quick, who knows how long it'll last. I suppose you've got time, haven't you? Possibly. So I'm just going to go through some stuff to do with composing with chords. I'll kind of start it at a relatively low level. I'm not going to go too kind of complex and complicated. Yeah, I've got live chat up, so if you've got any questions, do feel free to ask away. But I'm just going to go through and do a little bit of chord work. So I've got my keyboard set up here, and obviously then Cubase, whoops, I daisy that way, Cubase up there. So first things first, if you don't know much about Cubase, it's what's called a digital audio workstation. It allows me basically to record multiple things in from my keyboard and give it different sounds and do some multi-track recording. So we'll just add some instruments in here. Now some of the things you won't be able to see because I've got it on a window layout, so you won't be able to see some of the things I'm doing. So this isn't really a Cubase tutorial, it's about chords and things. So if you're wondering what I'm doing in the background to make things appear, it's on a slightly different screen, but then don't worry. It's more about the chords. So I'm just going to go into this top track here. I'm going to go in, you can't see this bit, I'm just going to go and choose my favourite piano on Cubase, which is the Yamaha S90 ES. Give it a little bit of release, so it's like I'm half holding the pedal down, just so the chords continue a little bit more. And I'll just name that piano. Let me just check if it works. Okay, yes it does. Okay, so first things first. If you are on, obviously you're on the Inter at the moment, I haven't written keys on my keyboard because it makes them dirty and it looks horrible. But if you want to, obviously, if you're not sure where the keys in the keyboard are and you want to get yourself a picture, if you just go into like keyboard notes on Google image search, and then obviously it'll tell you what all the different notes on the keyboard are. Yes. So first things first, what is a chord? Now, I'll generally be using triads, which are a specific type of chord with 3 notes. Officially, a chord is 2 or more notes played at the same time. Although, again, you can have chords which basically are notes split up from that with what's called an arpeggio. So I could say that this was a chord. Okay, even though they're not played at the same time. But for the moment, I'm just going to be using triad chords. Triad, basically 3-note chords made up of the first degree of the scale, in this case C, the 3rd degree of the scale, E, and the 5th degree of the scale, which in this case is G. Okay, now a triad chord is just is basically 2 intervals of a third on top of one another. Now the interval of a third, again at school I've been looking at Renaissance music, and John Dunstable, who was one of the first composers to start using thirds in harmony as opposed to the 4ths and 5ths of the medieval period, so plain chant and stuff like that. Prior to the use of thirds, there was quite a lot of harmony, well, initially monophonic, so there was no harmony at all. They just all sang the same thing, or possibly sang things in octaves. And eventually they therefore came into composing in properly 5ths. Okay, which again, that's fine. No problems with that. But then John Dunstable, in kind of late 1300s, started basically playing around with this interval of a third. Now, if I go from a C here and I move up 3 to an E, so C, D, E, counting on my fingers, C, D, E, then I come up with this interval here. Now, that is a major third. and we'll come to that in a second. That's a major third. It sounds kind of bright and happy. I am generalizing here, and I hate it when people say that major sounds happy and minor sounds sad, but for this video we're going to say that that's basically the case. It kind of sounds bright and happy. So a C and an E sounds bright and happy. Now the thing is that depending on where you start on the piano, because where the black notes are on the pattern of them, you don't always get the same sound. If you move up alphabetically 1, 2, 3 from one note, you don't always get something that sounds the same. So if you move up from, for example, an E, okay, and you move up to F, then to G, you get this, okay, which doesn't sound happy. Or if I do an A to a C, here for example, now that does not sound happy. Okay, that kind of sounds sad. That's called a minor third. Now if you're wondering, well, how do I know if it's a minor third or a major third, this all comes to do with the black notes and the white notes on a keyboard, and it's called semitones. Now a semitone is basically any move from one white note to the next note, whether it be black or white. That's one semitone, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a fifth is 7 semitones. Always 7 semitones. Okay? Now, at that point, the major third is 4 semitones. So hence, therefore, 1, 2, 3, 4. So all major thirds are 4 semitones, like so. Okay, this would be a major third. This would be a major third. Okay, they're all major thirds because they're 4 semitones apart from one another. A minor third is 3 semitones. So if I start from that C again and count 3, 1, 2, 3, then I get that. And that's a minor semitone. Sorry, minor third. That's minor. That's minor. That's minor as well. Okay, see, it's kind of a different kind of emotion. Now, composers worked out that by having this, you could therefore make things sound happy and sad and have more kind of emotion. Then they found out that you could put these things on top of one another, and you could therefore have a minor third, and you could then stick on from that note there another minor third. 1, 2, 3. Now that is a chord. It's a triad chord. It's called a diminished triad. And it sounds like a cheesy horror film. Okay, that is a minor third with a minor third on top. Together. I'm scared. Now, at that point, you can also put a minor third with a major third on top. Now that's our minor triad. We just call a minor chord. Okay. Now, if you therefore had a major third, and you put a minor third on top of it, you get a major triad. So that's that happy chord. Happy, happy. There's one more triad. There's only 4, but there's another triad which is a C, an E, and then if you do another major third, you get that, which is called an augmented triad. And it sounds a bit like a murder mystery. Okay. Now, when I'm at school, and if you're in one of my classes, you'll know that I do the story of me being murdered for a Greggs sausage roll. But I will go through that story. Apologies if any of you are vegan. You could be a Greggs vegan sausage roll. So I could say, for example, that I'm walking along quite happily with my major chord, eat my Greggs sausage roll, bought 4 because it's cheaper than buying 3. That's fine. And then somebody starts walking behind me, and that's my minor chord. Okay, and then you see it's kind of like there's an air of danger. I think he wants my Greggs sausage roll. Now the thing here is that he's then going to stab me for my Greggs sausage roll. Don't worry, this didn't really happen. However, imagine that it did. That's our diminished triad. Still just the chord of C, but this is C diminished. And then finally, I let go of my Greggs sausage roll, and I then, someone finds my body and goes, who is going to solve this mystery? Okay, so that's basically those 3 types of chords. So we have C diminished, a diminished triad, a minor, major, and augmented. Okay, so, and there's 12 notes on a keyboard, so that gives us 48 possible triads. Now, you are not going to use 48 triads. You're not just going to kind of randomly pick. So if you think you've got the note C and you've got C sharp, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, you got those 12 notes. If all of them have 12 possible chords, 4 possible chords, that gives you 48 chords. You don't just going to say, okay, I'm going to go kind of E flat diminished, and then I'm going to move to D major, and then I'm going to move to like B flat minor. If you do that, your piece of music sounds odd. Okay, it sounds odd. Sometimes you can find upon a really nice chord movement that you really like. But if you're beginning to compose, and this is more kind of beginning to compose using chords, basically the distance between chords really makes a big difference on what chords work with one another. So if I pick the chord of C, C major, whoops a daisy, that's not C major, that's C major. So if I pick the chord of C major, basically I can stick on that, and if I just pick a random chord, so if I go for like F sharp diminished, now is that 1 2 3 1 2 3? Yeah, that is an F sharp diminished. So that's that doesn't sound very good, does it? It's not the newest pop song. So yeah, it's beautiful, nice. Again, you might like that. It would work in some types of music. It's a surprise, but it's not necessarily like a pop song. It's not like a musical theatre song. It just doesn't go where you want it. If you went from that F sharp diminished and you just went to kind of E flat major, your piece of music just is one surprise after another. And again, you don't want to be doing too many surprises. So C major to F sharp diminished, then to E flat major, and let's go to A minor. And it's music, it's chords, it's a chord sequence, but it's not particularly very good chord sequence. So composers found out that actually, if you have a chord, then there's an interrelationship of chords. Now I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but generally, if you start on a major chord, in this case C major, so that's C. If you count up C, D, E, F, G to 5, to the 5th, then G, that would be G. G major works well with C. Okay, it's what's called its dominant chord. So you've got C, and then you've got G. Okay, again, those two things, they have a nice magnetic attraction to one another. Also, if you move up from A, B, C, yeah. So if you move opposite direction, so if you go C and you go down the alphabet, C, B, A, G, F, you go down by 5, you end up with F major, and that also therefore works with C. So here's C, and you've got F, back to C. And there are styles of music where you only feature chord 145 in major. So C, F, and G. C, F major, C major, F major, and G major. And you would only therefore use those 3 chords. So like, C, F, C, G, C. So I've only used 3 chords there, C, F, and G, 1, 4, 5 major. Okay. Now at that point there are other, because I mean that's kind of like they're called primary chords. At that point, it's like primary colours. You could make a piece of music just using those 3 chords, but you sometimes want a little bit more subtlety. You want something a little bit different. So there are 3 more chords. Chord 2, chord 3, and chord 6 all work out as minor triads. So the chord of C works nicely with the chord of D minor. Okay, that's nice. And then hence... Okay, and that's a nice little kind of micro chord. You can also, micro chord sequence. You can also use the chord of E minor, so C, D, E, E minor, number 3. C to E minor to F. Okay, and that sounds, again, that's just simple chords. The last one is A minor, will also work really well with C. It's A minor is what's called the relative minor of C. They share two of their notes and the same key signature, but don't worry about key signatures if you don't understand them yet. So C, A minor, F, G, A minor, F, C, and G, and then back to C. So you see that there we have 6 chords. So chord 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6 minor. And that's all basically a part of what's called the circle of fifths. Not that I'm going to go through that in great detail at the moment, but basically we get these interrelationship between 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6 minor, and pretty much a lot of the music that people listen to basically features those chords, just those chords. So there's a YouTube video called the 4 Chords song, which has tons. I mean, there's probably hundreds that just and that's not even the same 4 chords. That's the same 4 chords in the same order. So you can have. So that's chord 1, chord 5, chord 6, chord 4. Okay, and obviously Let It Be's in that, and I mean there's literally tons of songs that does that. So if you haven't checked it out on YouTube, check out the 4 Chord song. There's a group called Axis of Awesome. Just be aware, I think in the back end of it, one of the songs might have a naughty swear word. So maybe try and find one that is not. Doesn't have a naughty swear word, unless you're over the age of 18, at which point you're fine doing that. But yeah, so these 6 chords, you can make tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of music featuring that. Okay, so that's generally what I'm going to just basically do a very simple chord sequence. Now I'm in C major. C major is my key. C major is my chord number 1. So I'm going to start in C. Okay. Now, if I start in C, I need to think about where I might go. And it doesn't really matter which of those other chords I choose. They'll all give their own little flavour. So if I go to E minor, that's C to E minor, to A minor, and then a little flick on G. Okay, now that sounds perfectly fine to me. Okay, so again, it's by no means inventing anything new. That's not what I'm trying to do here. Just trying to do some really nice, easy, simple chords, just so you can see how you can layer these things up. Okay, so I'm just going to basically turn on a click track on Cubase just to keep me in time. I think we'll have this as kind of like 80 beats a minute. So there'll be a click, which is the metronome. Oh no, a bit fast. So let's have it at 70. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so I'm just going to record me playing this chord sequence. Now, if you're not a keyboard player, things like Cubase actually have auto chord players. So therefore you can bring up a chord player and it will play chords for you. And therefore you can kind of choose your chord sequences that way. But I kind of can play the piano. I'm not a great piano player, but I will probably play the piano as opposed to using the auto playing functionality of Cubase. So I'm just going to very quickly put the click track on and just record that C, E minor, A minor, and then the little bit of G at the end. Okay, and that's okay for the moment. Now, Cubase is useful because it can put things in time. So if I didn't play that perfectly in time, I can therefore do a thing called Quantize, at which point that makes everything nicely in time. Not that I was particularly out of time, but it just makes everything a little bit nicer. Although sometimes you don't necessarily want to completely do everything on what's called hard quantize. I have hard quantized this. Sometimes it can end up sounding a touch on the mechanical side, but for the moment we'll just do that. Okay, so just duplicate that. So I've got a very simple chord sequence here. And you can see the notes that I've played there. Now I've got a touch sensitive keyboard, so the different notes are how hard I kind of played the keyboard. Just very simple chords. Okay, so that's that chord sequence. I'm actually going to delete that one because I think probably oh, whoops, so daisy. Okay, one sec. Yeah. So I'm probably thinking a new chord sequence. Okay, you can probably hear it as well. You can kind of hear that it wants to go on to something new. I don't want to necessarily repeat that too long. So yeah. So if you listen to this, it's kind of moving along, and it kind of wants to go somewhere after this point. And this way, knowing the 6 chords that it might want to move from is useful. Now, I know what chord I want to hear, but let's see if in your head you can work out where it wants to go. Listen to the bass note and see what the bass note wants to do. See if you agree with me. So just have a listen to this. I want that note. Okay? Da, which happens to be F. Okay, so I think I'm wanting to move to F there. Okay, so I'm gonna click play. Now, just to let you know, I kind of went with it there, and I'll just quickly explain. Now, again, a useful thing of Cubase is you can get rid of any accidental notes that you pressed. But also, if I click and drag and you ever plan to play something and you think, oh, what chord is that? This one will tell me that it's a chord of F major. Now, when I moved down, I went from F and I went to C. What I did do, though, and you'll notice there you could hear it, was I moved my top finger down to a D, and in doing so created a chord which is a C9. So it's a chord of C with a D, which is what's called a 9th chord. Now anyone who knows me will know that I like nine chords. And then we have the chord of F, and again the C9. We have the chord of A minor, we have the chord of G, and then we have the chord of C. Okay, so we're just sticking to those same chords. Okay, like so. And at that point, in a standard pop song, the whole lot would be copied and done. Okay, now just to kind of bring it to life a little bit, I'll just quickly add some bass and some drums, and you can just kind of see how the chords are only the first step. Everything else just has to come for it to kind of sound a little bit more musical and a bit more pleasurable to the ear. But we'll go from the beginning, and I'll just quickly add in some bass and some drums. So I'll just go in and find an electric bass sound on this. Name it bass. Yep, that's all right. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to create like the next big hit. just kind of trying to show how you would put together these really simple chords to create pieces of music that sound like things you would hear. And I'll just choose a standard drum kit there. Okay, so we'll do bass first, I think. Now I have to remember my chord sequence, which is C, E, and then A minor, G, back to C. Okay, I'll try and remember that and play along. I might do a little bit of walking bass, which I won't go into now, but I might move the bass and not just stick it to the root notes of the chords. That's like the bottom notes of the chords. But don't worry about that. A future video, I'm sure, will cover this, but this is just to go through with you. Here we go. Just really simple little bass line there. Now I stop there because I do want to kind of make sure I've got it in its right sections, and I will just go through it. I'll now add a bass part for my F, C, F, C, A, G, C. So I'll just kind of carry on. Again, you'll see that I did a little bit of that walking bassing that I talked about. Again, don't worry too much about this. Sometimes you can walk, if you know you're going from A, so from F, and you know you're going to C, you just walk up. As long as you hit the note you want to go to, by the time that the actual chord above changes, you'll generally be okay with that. So, and I can just, now I'm not going to straight copy my bass part there, because I'm just going to slightly make a bit more interesting bass line than the first verse. Again, pop songs, usually their second verse is usually a little bit more kind of lively and has some more stuff going on. So I made a mistake. Now it happens, but I changed my bass line. You might have heard it. I changed my bass line too soon, I think, somewhere. I definitely did. Let me just have a listen. I'll see if I can hear where I did that mistake. But I definitely did do a mistake. Just a little bit early. Now it doesn't matter. I can just move the note back up to the A and it should sound better. Okay, so let me just move that. And then should be right. So listen. For the moment, I could probably tweak it and do some more stuff, but we're only doing something nice and simple just to begin with. So we now have, and you'll notice that I added a bass part there at the end. Now I'm just going to slightly go in here. I'm just going to extend that final chord as an ending. So you'll notice that I can edit all these different notes individually, which is useful. And I can just make sure that it has a nice ending. So I've now got an ending with chord 1. And you want to finish on chord 1 generally, unless you've done a complicated piece. You want to finish on the chord you started with. So I'm just going to add some drums now. And again, if you do not know how to do Cubase, don't worry. But basically, I can play my keyboard. Oh, sorry, you've the keyboard thing, you haven't been able to see my keyboard. It seems to have frozen the actual keyboard picture. Let me see if I can do something about that quickly, just so you can see me do the drum part. So just give me 2 seconds while I just change that. 1 sec. 2 secs, just going to stand up. Okie dokie. Aha, there we are. We're back again. Excellent. So you can now. Oh, are we back again? No, it might have gone again. Maybe I'll have to check on this one later on. Maybe it's being tricksy. Technology sometimes is that way. Yeah, I'll just leave that for the moment. Okay, so I'll just pop that off. Apologies, I'll look into that and see why you can't see what I'm doing. So basically on the drum part, I can basically add some drums. So I've got kick drum, I've got snare drum, I've got hi-hat. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick drum part. Nothing too complicated. Very nice. Yeah. Okay, let me try and do something actually that was okay. Here we go. I'll concentrate this time. Sorry, I didn't expect that cymbal to be quite that loud. Okay, let me just quickly do a little quick edit on that. I'm going to get rid of that cymbal bit because the cymbal was like tremendously. I'm not sure if it was for you. Through my, I scared myself through my headphones. Okie dokie. Control D. Okay, so just glue that together. Again, very, very, very simple drum part. So nothing massive going on. Not trying to do anything particularly great. Just show how you can very simply create music. In fact, no, it gets busier there. I don't want to do rim shots there. I want to do an actual drum part. Here we go. Okay, again, nice and simple. Now if I turn my click track off, and the positive thing about Cubase is my drums kind of sound a little bit, they're just a little bit too in your face possibly. So I'm just going to put what's a little bit of reverb and just try and put them in a bit of into a room, just to kind of chill the drums out a little bit, especially cymbals. Yep, that's a little bit better. Just do the same with the piano. Okay, so just to go through, I'll just play all of that, and you can just see very, very simple chords, but you put a bass part based on the chords, you put a simple drum part, and you've got a passable, simple song. So here's a simple song before the end of this video. Here we go. Some vocals in it, it'd be not bad. Chorus. Okay, so it may be, I was just looking at my stream there, that we might be having some issues with the stream, so apologies if that is the case. But yes, hopefully you still can slightly see what's going on. Fingers crossed. But yes, so that's it for this this kind of session. Just again, really simple chords. Again, good old John Dunstable, who started working with thirds back in the Renaissance period, or end of the medieval, beginning of the Renaissance. And obviously, all music after that point really follows on from those triad chords. And there's lots more, but again, a lot of the music you listen to will be made up of those relatively simple chords. So yeah, hopefully that's been useful and enjoyable. And if you need anything, let me know. Cheers.